representing men from the 23rd Regiment of the United States Infantry, soldiers that were stationed here at Fort Mackinac about 130 years ago. At that time, all men are given two different styles of uniform. On an everyday basis, most of the soldiers would wear something like what Andrew has on. It's called our undress uniform. It's what we'd wear to do all of our regular work here around Fort Mackinac. And also, if we're ever called out into combat, that's what we'd wear as well. And even when we're in our off-duty hours, that's generally what we're wearing. It's basically the everyday wear for a soldier. In contrast, the uniform that I have on is a lot fancier, and this is reserved only for special formal occasions. It's called the dress uniform, and it should be reserved for things like parade, an inspection, a wedding, a funeral, any sort of other ceremony the soldier would have to attend. Probably the most distinctive feature is this tall spiked helmet that maybe doesn't look terribly familiar. It's very much inspired by the Prussian military from Germany. They were considered to be the best soldiers in the world in the 1870s and 1880s. Everyone was copying them. You see a lot of armies of the world over adopting a spiked helmet, and the United States does so as well. But just for the dress uniform, so you never see this in combat, you never see this anywhere except for those formal ceremonies. It may look extremely fearsome, but it's actually very flimsy, just meant for decoration. If we're actually going out to fight, we have a much better weapon in the form of one of these rifles, but I'll let Andrew tell you a little bit more about those.
Thank you, Niall. Now, the rifles that we carry are called Springfield 4570s. They first came out for the U.S. Army in 1873. Now, it's actually the very first time that every soldier in the U.S. Army was being issued a breech-loading weapon. It means to load, you simply pull back twice on the hammer, flip open the rising breech, insert your round, close it up, pull back once more, you're ready to fire. Very simple and very quick. You're expected to be able to load one of these in under 5 seconds, which is some training. And you're also using a brass cartridge, just like you find in hunting stores today. This is a .45 caliber round containing 70 grains of black powder, so hence the 4570 name for the rifle. This is a very reliable way to fire your rifle, very easy to load as I already demonstrated, but also helps make the rifle much more accurate as well. Since you are loading from the breech like that, that allows your bullet to have a perfectly tight seal with the barrel to take full advantage of the rifling, the spiral grooves in the barrel, to put a perfectly tight spiral on your bullet to make it go very accurately at very long ranges. This rifle can hit a target reliably up to 1,000 yards away, over half a mile. Now, I'd like anybody out here to raise their hand if they think you can hit a target at 1,000 yards. I trust you. I'll talk to you a little bit. But that's going to be very few people today. That was very few people back then as well, especially amongst the U.S. Army. They did not have very many skilled shots amongst their ranks. The men that were joining the Army were generally doing so, being recruited out of very heavily populated areas like urban cities, New York City, Philadelphia, Boston, and maybe never picked a rifle up in their entire lives. So the Army realized very quickly they now had a piece of technology that far surpassed the level of their skill of their soldiers and also the training as well. At that time, it was up to the discretion of the post or company commanders out in the field to train their soldiers on their own time and with their own money. Well, that had to change. The Army had to step in and mandate this training, which they did in 1884 for the very first time, requiring soldiers to take regular target practice about twice a week. It's also the first time they were paying for the training as well, so there's no more excuses. And even here at Fort Mackinac, we constructed a full 1,000-yard target range and did have several soldiers qualify as sharpshooters, hitting the target at that full range. Actually, we were a bit ahead of the national military average, which you like to brag about even 130 years later. With that said, as we step back to fire, I will warn you, it will be very loud. You'll see myself and Niall putting in some historically inaccurate foam earplugs. If you didn't bring foam earplugs today, that's just fine. You got your fingertips, the palms of your hands, they cover up your ears just fine. We'll step back and fire a couple rounds each. We hope you enjoy.
Folks, can you please not cross right now? We are about to be firing. Thank you. Ready, aim, fire. Ready, aim, fire.